My name is Tom Paquette, and it's been my privilege to produce these brief devotional videos in an effort to help you walk well with God. We're having a little fireside chat here today because it's a cold, snowy day here in Ohio, but I'm really glad that you're glad that you're with me. Listen, hey, I've been overwhelmed by the response to these videos. I said in the first one that if I have evidence that 12 people are watching these, then it'll be very much worth my doing. But the response has been overwhelming. There have been over 1,000 views of each of my first two videos, and that just blows me away. So I'm glad that there are a number of you out here that are finding benefit from these videos. Today I'd like to talk with you about living a life of balance in the Lord. I have here a pretty familiar tool to probably everybody, and it's a level. And a level is a tool that we use to make sure that horizontal surfaces are horizontal and vertical surfaces are vertical. We call that plumb. I use this a lot when I was building the workshop because I want my walls to be straight. I want my surfaces to be correct. But it's an indicator of balance. When one side gets high or low, then the bubble moves off of the middle. We want to live a life of balance. And listen, sometimes people ask me this question. They say, you know, when you talk so much about the love of God, don't you run the risk of kind of getting things out of balance, that God loves us so much and He's so willing to forgive us that we kind of stop paying attention to the way that we're living our lives? Doesn't it, sometimes people say, doesn't that give us a license to sin? Well, let me talk about a license to sin. First of all, you don't need a license to sin. You can just go ahead and do it. There's nowhere to get a license. I mean, if you're going to drive a car, you got to get a license. I have a license. I have a motorcycle endorsement on my license. If you're going to go fishing in Ohio, you have to have a license. And I have a lifetime license for fishing in Ohio. If you're going to fly an airplane, you have to go and prove that you can do it and get a license. I have a private pilot's license. You've got to get these kind of licenses, but if you're looking for a license to sin, there's nowhere to get one. You can just go ahead and do it. I don't recommend it, but I'm just saying there's no such thing as a license to sin. Listen, and I want to say this. If you're looking for that, if you're looking for a way out of walking the Christian walk, then you're probably already out of it. You're probably already out of it. But listen, the question is, doesn't emphasizing the love of God so much, Abba's love for us, doesn't it run the risk of getting things out of balance so that we just, live in the Abba's love and do whatever we want? Well, I can see how that might be a question, but I think that it's driven by the fact that we have spent so much time in the church talking about behaviors that we're really out of balance away from the love of God, and we have to go back to that. I mean, I know a lot of Christians who have been deceived into thinking that a disciple these days is a person who does what? Well, they go to church on Sunday. That's what disciples do. They read their Bible and pray some time during the week. That's what Christians do. They give money to the church, of course, and they help out in the children's ministry or welcome team or whatever their thing might be. And it's like that's what a disciple looks like today. And then obviously then there's some list that kind of varies from group to group of things you can't do if you're going to call yourself a Christian. You can't drink, can't smoke, can't chew, can't go with girls that do, or whatever. You can't watch R-rated movies. I find it interesting, though, that I know Christians who won't watch R-rated movies if there's nudity in it, but they'll freely watch them if there's all kinds of violence in it. And to me, I don't get that. That's a real disconnect for me. So in any case, it seems like every group has their list of don't do these things if you want to be a disciple. But here's my question. We want to live a life of obedience to Jesus, right? Well, of all the things that I just mentioned, name me one of them that Jesus said that we must do or that we must not do? Name me a single one of them. I mean, the clear commands of Jesus, if we want to be obedient to what Jesus actually said, we have to do things like, feed the hungry, clothe and house people who need that. We need to visit the sick or in prison. We need to go the second mile. These are the commands of Jesus. We need to turn the other cheek. We need to not only give them our coat, but our shirt as well. We need to be just crazy generous people with the people we come in contact with. You know, these are the real things. We need to forgive those who have wronged us. These are the commands of Jesus. These are the commands of Jesus. And my concern is that we have become so focused on this small set of behaviors about which Jesus never even spoke, that we never get to the things that he actually did say we needed to be about. And so we become satisfied with our discipleship because we're doing these things, these man-made things that the church is really made up. And so I think that, this whole concept of, be careful you don't over-focus too much on the love of God, I don't think that's it at all. I think we're already out of focus, out of balance with behavior, so that when we focus on the love of God, it'll bring us back into realizing what the true commands of Jesus actually are. And living a life of true obedience to the things that Jesus actually called us to do flows from a relationship of love with Abba Father. That's where it comes from. I mean, just think about it. Jesus was asked, which is the greatest commandment? Did he say, go to church, read your Bible, yada, 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 you don't smoke, drink, chew, blah, blah, blah? He said, no. He said, love God. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength. Love God. Live in loving relationship with Abba Father. So what he said is the greatest. And he said, and the second, by the way, is also about love. You know it, maybe. Love your neighbor as yourself. So being obedient to Jesus isn't about this set of man-made regulations. It's about living in a love relationship with Abba that creates in us a desire to do the things that Jesus has called us to do. In John 14:15, Jesus said the most interesting thing. He said, if you love me, you will obey what I command. If you love me, you will obey what I command. Now, there are two ways to read this. One is kind of the harsh way. Well, if you love me, you'll obey what I command. Obviously you don't love me because you're not obeying me. And that's so far out of context of John chapter 14. And I think we would be better to read that, if you love me, you'll obey what I command. In other words, if you focus on being in a love relationship with God, then we will naturally obey him in the things that he truly talked about. And you might say, well, why would people read it any other way? Why would they read it the other way? If you love me, you'll obey what I command. And here's my sense. Because you can control people better with judgment than you can with love. You can control people better with judgment than you can with love. When you set love as the target, as the essence of relationship with God, you're not going to be able to control people. You're not going to be able to get them to stand up and sit down when you want them to. You're not going to be able to get them to do all the church stuff. But Jesus said something really interesting in Matthew chapter 15, verses 7 and 8. And he was talking to the Pharisees, and you probably know the Pharisees were all about the behavior, all about do this, do this, do this. 613 Levitical laws. Do this, or you're not right. And here's what he said to them. He said, you hypocrites! Isaiah was right when he prophesied about you. This is Matthew 15, starting at verse 7. He said, these people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. They worship me in vain, Their teachings are merely human rules. Do you hear that? He said, they honor me with their lips. They say the right things, but their hearts are far from me. Their teaching is but rules made up by men. Wow. I don't want that. I want him to have my heart. I want to have a love relationship with Abba, and in doing so, then I'll just naturally want to be obedient to him and the things that that truly matter to him, and the things that he truly talked about. You know, I've been married to the same woman for over 50 years. I know, crazy, right? I still like to introduce her as, in social situations, hi, this is my first wife, Karen. I don't know, it's just fun. But one of the things that I've learned in all this time of being married is Karen and I have never focused on the rules of the marriage, the rules of the relationship. We've never done that. We've never said, well, you better, because we focused on the love that we have for each other, the love we have for our family. And when we focus on the love that we have for each other as husband and wife, we find ourselves automatically keeping the terms of the covenant, if you will, the rules of the relationship. So I just want to encourage you today. Let's get it back in balance. Let's pull this thing back up in balance. Let's start focusing on the love end and watch the obedience flow from that. Because I know that you want to live a life of balance. I know that you want to live both in the love of God and obedience to God. I know that. So focus on Abba. Don't focus on your failures. You're never going to get there by focusing on your failures, on the list of rules and regulations. You're never going to get there. But what I want to encourage you to do instead is accept God's scandalous invitation to come to him as Abba, as Dad. Doesn't take anything away from his majesty, his holiness, his perfection, all of the attributes of God. Doesn't take a thing away from it. But by his own words, he says, I want you to come, and I want you to call me Dad. All right? Hey, hope that's helpful. It's time to go. It's time for us to go leave Abba's workshop and go out into the world and be the workmanship of God. God bless you, and we'll see you next time right here in Abba's workshop.